Funny how the world never stops, isn't it? Clocks keep ticking like nothing cracked open inside you. People laugh, move forward, fall in love again, chase distractions, post smiles, and pretend that damage doesn't echo. Like the ones who broke you didn't carve their fingerprints into your silence and walk away untouched. They act like pain expires, like trauma has a timestamp, like the moment you stop talking about it, it stopped happening. But you know better, because pain like that doesn't leave. It settles into your posture, your tone, the way your eyes scan rooms before your feet ever step inside. You ever sit alone in the dark and realize the darkness is the only thing that doesn't demand anything from you? No performance, no explanations, no pretending you're okay when you're barely holding yourself together. Just silence, heavy, honest. That's the truth nobody warns you about when you break for the first time. Wounds close, scars stay awake. Scars don't bleed, they whisper. And tonight, I'm not here to soften that truth. I'm here to sharpen it. They broke you once. Never again. People misunderstand silence. They confuse it with weakness. They think if you're not screaming, not lashing out, not collapsing publicly, then you didn't feel it deeply. That's a lie told by people who have never survived anything real. Silence isn't empty. It's loaded. It's where rage learns patience, where pain learns precision, where monsters aren't born loud, but calculated. That quiet space you live in now, the one where you stopped explaining yourself, they call it peace. It's not peace, it's survival. Because when the storm hit, when everything that mattered collapsed at once, people watched. Some turned their heads. Some enjoyed it. Some smiled like your suffering confirmed something ugly inside them. And you civilized people, and you still believed, you still hoped. You still held on longer than you should have. That wasn't weakness. That was courage misplaced. But courage without boundaries gets slaughtered. They didn't just hurt you. They observed you. They memorized your softness. They studied the way you forgave too fast, trusted too deeply, stayed too long. Then they used it. They took your kindness apart, like mechanics tearing down an engine, figuring out exactly how much pressure could take before breaking. And when it broke, these civilized people, they stepped back and pretended they didn't know how it happened. You thought they'd come back. Thought they'd realize what they did. Thought remorse would eventually outweigh convenience. These civilized people, but people rarely return to clean up the mess they leave in someone else's soul. They move on lighter. You carry the weight. Memories that replay without permission. Conversations that change meaning years later. Moments that felt small then, but haunt you now. You ever try to sleep while your mind screams like a siren? While your body is exhausted, but your thoughts refuse to shut down. That's not weakness. That's aftermath. These civilized people, most people collapse once and never stand straight again. They let the break define the rest of their life. You didn't. You're still here, still breathing, still functioning, even when it hurt to exist. And that's what makes you dangerous. Pain didn't destroy you. It educated you. It taught you how loyalty gets exploited, how affection becomes leverage, How words lose meaning. When patterns stay the same, you stop listening to promises. You started watching behavior. And that shift, that awareness, that's irreversible. It wasn't your fault that you cared. Caring is not the crime. It's their curse that they didn't. They thought breaking you would make you smaller, quieter, easier to forget. Instead, it stripped the illusions from your eyes. It removed the softness that let people cross lines without consequence. It taught you restraint. You don't chase explanations anymore. You don't wait for apologies that never come. These civilized people, you beg to be understood by people who benefited from misunderstanding you. You became controlled, measured, cold enough to think clearly. You became the silence that unsettles them. You don't need revenge. Revenge is loud and temporary. You are something worse. People. You are the reminder that they lost access. Nothing cuts deeper than watching someone walk away unbothered, unresponsive, unreachable, like you were never dependent on them to begin with. That's real power. People not yelling, not rage, not proving anything, detachment. The moment someone realizes they can't affect your mood, your peace, your direction, the game ends. And they feel it, even if they never admit it. I remember the moment everything went numb inside you. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just quiet. That hollow feeling where even pain gets tired of screaming. Where disappointment replaces anger, because anger still expects something. You noticed how people disappear the moment you stop being useful. How support has conditions. How love has limits. They love you when you're strong. They vanish when you're human. That's when masks fall. That's when truth shows up without knocking. Your breaking wasn't loud. It didn't make headlines. Nobody rushed to save you. You smiled through it, functioned through it, died privately. They took everything you gave and treated it like it was disposable, like loyalty was unlimited, like you'd always be there no matter how little they gave back. But broken isn't the end. It's the beginning of clarity. You stopped explaining yourself, stopped over-giving, stopped hoping people would finally choose you the way you chose them. People. You started observing, because once someone breaks you, they expect you to stay available. They expect access without accountability, forgiveness without change. Not anymore. Pain taught you economics. Your energy costs now. Your time is selective. Your loyalty is earned slowly, not handed out freely. You don't bleed for people who wouldn't patch you up. They say you changed. Good. They miss the old you. Of course they do. That version tolerated disrespect. That version explained boundaries instead of enforcing them. That version is gone. This one doesn't chase, doesn't argue, doesn't react emotionally to manipulation. This one watches patterns and makes decisions quietly. Closure isn't something they give you. Closure is what you create by walking away without a speech. Indifference is not cruelty. It's self-respect after survival. People fear what they can't predict. And you used to be predictable. Always there, always forgiving, always available. Now you're absent, and absence reveals value. You don't rise to prove anything. You rise because pain rebuilt you into something solid. You didn't heal the old version. You outgrew it. And rebuilt people don't shake easily. They walk quieter. Think sharper. Speak less. They let outcomes speak louder than words. Let them wonder what happened to you. Let them feel the weight of your absence. Let them sit with the silence they helped create. You don't owe them explanations. You don't owe them access. You don't owe them closure. They broke you once. That was the lesson. Never again. You know what happens after silence settles in long enough. It stops hurting. That's the part no one warns you about. Not because the damage disappears, people, but because you finally stop fighting it. Pain gets tired of chasing someone who no longer reacts. You wake up one day and realize something shifted. Not happiness, not peace, control. You don't flinch when memories surface. You don't spiral when names come up. You don't feel that familiar tightening in your chest when you pass places that used to mean something. You notice it, acknowledge it, and keep moving. That's when you understand you didn't go numb. You went disciplined. They think you healed. You didn't. You adapted. Healing suggests returning to who you were before. That version doesn't exist anymore, and it shouldn't, because the person you were before the break had blind spots. They trusted too easily. They explained themselves to people who never listened. They stayed loyal to situations that were slowly draining them. People, that version couldn't survive this world the way it actually is. So pain did what comfort never could. It upgraded you. You stopped romanticizing suffering. Stopped telling yourself stories about, loyalty being enough. Stop believing effort guarantees respect. You learned the truth. People don't value what's pure. They value what's rare and unavailable. And you became unavailable. Not emotionally cold, strategically distant. Not heartless, selectively invested. You didn't lose your humanity. You protected it. You started noticing patterns instead of excuses. How some people only show up when they need something. How apologies appear only when consequences arrive. How silence becomes loud when you stop initiating everything. You saw it all clearly now. And clarity is dangerous. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending red flags or misunderstandings. You can't unlearn how people treat you when you stop over-giving. That's why they say you changed. Because the version of you they benefited from no longer exists. They don't miss you. They miss access. Access to your time, your energy, your forgiveness, your emotional labor. They miss the version of you that absorbed damage quietly. That version died. And what replaced it doesn't announce itself. You move differently now, not rushed, not reactive, calculated. You don't post everything. You don't explain your moves. You don't broadcast your growth. Because loud growth invites unnecessary attention, and attention attracts parasites. So you build in silence. You noticed how powerful it feels to stop reacting, to let messages go unanswered, to let disrespect sit without response, not because you're weak, but because it's beneath your attention. You learned that not every battle deserves your energy. Not every misunderstanding deserves clarity. Not every person deserves closure. Some people only understand loss. And silence delivers that lesson perfectly. They replay conversations with you now, trying to figure out where they lost you, trying to pinpoint the moment your tone changed. They won't find it. Because the shift didn't happen in a moment. It happened across nights you survived alone, across betrayals you swallowed quietly, across boundaries you finally decided to enforce. They didn't notice the evolution because it didn't benefit them. But now they feel the absence. And absence rewrites value. You see, when you were always available, your presence was taken for granted. Now that you're gone, they feel the vacuum. That's not ego, that's psychology. Humans don't miss what they had. They miss what they lost, and they lost access to you. Not because you hate them, not because you want revenge, because staying would have cost you yourself. And you finally chose yourself. That choice didn't come easy. It came with guilt, with second guessing, with moments where you wondered if you were becoming too cold, too distant, too hard. But then you remembered how it felt to be broken, how it felt to stay loyal while bleeding. These civilized people, how it felt to beg for understanding from people who were comfortable hurting you. And the guilt disappeared, because self-respect feels better than approval ever did. You don't crave validation anymore. You don't need reassurance. You don't chase attention. You learned something critical. People who truly care don't need to be chased. They show up, they adjust, they protect. Anyone else was just passing through. And that realization changed how you move. You became selective with your words, precise with your energy, unapologetic with your boundaries. You stopped trying to be understood by everyone, because being misunderstood by the wrong people is safer. You stopped correcting lies told about you, because the truth doesn't need defending. You stopped explaining your absence, because your silence says enough. That's when you noticed something interesting. The more you stopped reacting, the more uncomfortable people became. They wanted a response, an argument, a reaction. These civilized people, because reactions give them relevance, and when you didn't give it, they panicked. You became unpredictable, and unpredictability scares people who rely on control. They couldn't read you anymore, couldn't manipulate your emotions, couldn't provoke the old responses they were used to. You weren't cold, you were unreachable. And unreachable people command respect without asking for it. You didn't become cruel, you became firm. There's a difference. Cruelty seeks to hurt. Firmness refuses to be hurt again. You didn't build walls. You built filters. And only the right people pass through filters. You started noticing peace in places you never felt it before. In solitude, in routine, in discipline. You realized being alone isn't lonely when you trust yourself. You stopped needing someone else to validate your existence. Stopped outsourcing your worth. People. Because nothing is more dangerous than a person who no longer needs approval. You walk into rooms now without shrinking, without performing, without explaining. You let silence speak, and silence says, I know. I am. I know what I survived. I know what I won't tolerate again. That energy changes how people treat you. Some disappear, some adjust, some resent you quietly. Let them. Not everyone is meant to come with you to the next version of your life. Some people only know how to access you when you're bleeding full. They don't recognize strength unless it's convenient. And that's okay. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be intact. You stopped seeking closure from people who never took accountability. You realized closure isn't a conversation. It's a decision. You closed the door without slamming it, without explaining, without looking back. That kind of exit stays in people's heads forever. Because unanswered questions hurt more than arguments. You didn't need to prove anything. Your absence proved everything. You became someone people think about, but can't reach. Someone they remember, but don't understand anymore. And that's power, not power over them. Power over yourself. You no longer give your pain away for free. You no longer bleed to prove loyalty. You no longer stay where respect is optional. You became expensive to access. People and expensive things are protected. You don't announce wins. You don't brag about growth. You let consistency do the talking, brick by brick, quietly, relentlessly. You built discipline where chaos once lived, structure where emotions once ruled. Not because you stopped feeling, but because you stopped letting feelings drive decisions. You learned that love without boundaries is self-destruction, that loyalty without limits is suicide, and you chose survival. Now when people look at you, they sense it. Something changed. They don't know what exactly, but they feel it. They sense that you won't bend the way you used to. That manipulation won't land. That guilt trips won't work. You're no longer accessible through emotion, and that makes you untouchable. You don't chase closure. You don't chase people. You don't chase validation. You chase alignment. And alignment is quiet. You don't need to tell anyone how far you've come. The calm in your presence says it all. You didn't win by destroying anyone. You won by refusing to destroy yourself again. These civilized people, that's the victory no one claps for, but everyone feels. So let them remember you incorrectly. Let them tell stories that protect their ego. Let them paint you as cold if it helps them sleep. You know the truth. You know how much it took to get here. You know how many nights you survived alone. You know what you buried to become this version. And that knowledge makes you unbreakable. They broke you once. That was the lesson. This time you're the boundary. Never again.